Hi all, and welcome back. I hope all you are back. And we'll be starting our next session that is from Mumbai chapter, which is a panel discussion on Agile Wow, Future of Banking. We have Amok, Shruti Pandit, Anish Ramani, and Tripti Gule as a panelist. So before moving on to this panel discussion, I would like to thank our founding sponsor, Innovation Roots. It is a leading consulting and training service provider helping organizations to achieve business agility and beyond. It is one of the leaders and pioneers of niche publishing services and well known for content collaboration with global thought leaders, authors, and creators. For more information, you may visit www.innovationroots.com. And I would also like to thank our sponsor, Agile, which is a product offering from Tata Consultancy Services Limited. It is a purely cloud-based enterprise agile planning tool along with DevOps capabilities. Enterprise can use Agile to adopt agile practices or scale across multiple Scrum and Kanban teams using enterprise scaling frameworks such as SAFe, Discipline, Agile, Less, and more. You can try out Agile for free up to 20 users for 30 days by signing up at agile.io or reach out to us for any inquiries or exclusive product demo. You can check out the Agile page on our Agile Network India website for more information. Here are some quick do's and don'ts for the participants. I request all of you to join 5 minutes before the event. Use high quality speakers or headphones for better sound quality. Please keep your microphones muted and videos disabled as this may cause disturbance and bandwidth issue. Questions will be taken via the chat box. I request all of you to fill in the questions in the chat box. At the end of the session, the facilitator or the moderator will help and read out few questions to the speaker as per the time available. Please fill in the feedback forms after the event to help us understand more about the event management. And we appreciate your cooperation. With this, I request Manoj to come on microphone and camera. Hi Manoj, over to you.
Uh, Hi Nisha, Amog here.
Hi.
So good evening everyone. On the behalf of Agile Network India Mumbai chapter, I am welcoming all to this session of Agile Wow for the future of banking. This is the overall the panelist discussion. With me, I do have three panelists: Anish Ramani, Shruti Pandit, and Tripti Gule. They have more than 10 plus years of work experience, more than 10 plus of work experience in the overall banking industry, and they will be will be having this session today. So before starting the session, I would like to have a quick introduction with this all the panelists. Shruti, would you like to give some quick introduction about yourself?
Yeah, thanks Amok for introducing me. Hello everyone. I'm Shruti Pandit. Right now I am heading the Agile transformation at Internet Travel Solutions. We are into corporate travel management. Prior to that, I was playing the role of Agile coach in ABN AMRO Bank's Agile transformation. Was with ABN AMRO Tata Consultancy Services for good 10 years, where we drove Agile transformation for 1,200 plus people based out of Bangalore, Netherlands, and Mumbai. And in between, I also switched to Container Managed Services, a US-based firm where I was program managing and driving agile transformation for cybersecurity product and DevOps team for Container. So that's it. Thanks, Amok. Over to you.
Thank you. So Anish, would you like to give a quick introduction?
Sure, thanks, Amog. Hi, everyone. My name is Anish Ramani. Overall, 23 years in the IT industry, working for financial services clients. I'm a technologist at heart, but a consultant by profession. So today I manage the consulting practice for financial services at LTI. I've started my career as a Java developer, but over the years I've played multiple roles, be it on the development side, architecture side, or consulting side, always focusing on the financial services sector. And my current focus is about helping banks, which include GSIBs as well as regional banks across the globe on their digital transformation journeys. So that's me. Thanks, Amok.
Tripti, would you like to give quick introduction about yourself?
Sure, thanks.
Hi, my name is Trupti Gule. I have over 18 years of experience. Throughout this experience, I've worked in various industries, including the banking as well as telecommunication. Fortunate to work into various technologies. Currently, I'm managing a project in systems within Edelweiss, and I've also worked into Agile, and I'm very enthusiastic about being an Agile within my team. That's all from my.
Thank you, thank you, Tripti. So before starting, this today's session, this is today's session, Agile Wow, Future of Banking. So as we are seeing, the overall way of working in overall banking is changing. How the overall transformations are happening, overall banking. Lot of things are happening in agile space. Lot of things are happening in the banking, wherein lot of products which are happening, which is more customer centric. So how this overall agile way of working, how the overall architecture, how the digital space, how the quality assurance space will help overall the future of banking, will be discussing in that direction. So this oral panelist discussion will be having some of the, as already suggested by Nisha, please jot down all the questions on the chat. I will take post in the last 10 minutes. Okay. So as we're starting, so as we have seen, there are a lot of market focus are there in the banking industry, and we need to see what are those. So can you, guys, this is one thought process which comes in my mind. What are the market forces which can driving the banking industry? Would you like to throw some light?
Yeah, let me start. Okay. So I think one of the factors that's on everyone's mind over the last 1.5 years is pandemic, right? We keep hearing about it, but it has truly changed everyone's life, right? Whether it is banks or it is IT organizations or it is the customers that the banks are relating to, right? Experience is a big factor, and pandemic has kind of accelerated, it's one of the market forces that has accelerated other market forces. Okay, so to give you an example, people are now a lot more comfortable using Swiggy or Google Pay or Ola, and there is a definite shift towards digital, from physical to digital. So even the laggards have now kind of adopted digital, and that is where banks are also now focusing on the digital side of things, creating more smarter human experiences. Okay, so it's no longer an option, it's a necessity. So that's one market force. uh, Another one that I feel for the banking industry is banking is getting boundaryless. Okay, so regulations like PSD2, they have really opened floodgates for fintechs, big techs meaning all, the Googles, Amazons, and Microsofts of the world. All of them are, now entering into the banking world. Yeah, and there are players like, for example, Solaris Bank, right? Solaris Bank is a tech company with a German banking license. So now they are offering banking as a service to other players who want to enter the banking industry. So that's another major factor, you are in India also, you are seeing the likes of Paytm give a run for their money, right? Give the banks a run for their money. So again, banks are becoming boundaryless, and they are now trying to be part of this larger ecosystem so that they don't lose out on the race. Okay. Uh, Third point I would say is, the regulatory pressures, right? So be it the US Federal Reserve, you if you're browsing the net around financial services, you'll always see some bank being, paying a penalty for something, right? So US Federal Reserve, FCA, RBI, they're all bringing in regulations because of this whole shift towards digital. There's also increased fraud, and there's data privacy issues. So all those are coming into play, and then the regulatory bodies are bringing in the right regulations. Now that is also forcing banks to invest in those areas, so they can't ignore that, right? Otherwise they end up paying a lot more. so
Yeah.
so that's one factor. And I would say the last point from my side would be, the cost pressures, right? I mean, everybody's stretched on margins, and the banks are looking for opportunities to when we are engaging with our clients, the first thing on their mind is, yes, I want to be the number one player, but I also want to do it at a lower cost. So cost pressures is another market force that is making a big impact.
Thank you, Anish,
Yeah.
for a wonderful insights.
Just to add to it, I feel, I mean, it's almost the similar what my friend Anish mentioned. Banking industry is changing customer expectation. I think, digital account opening service does carry a higher risk, but financial institutions cannot take this for granted anymore. That is a must now in the industry. So providing, ensuring that whatever the competition is providing, each of financial institution consider those kind of features. I think that is also one of the driving forces. Another one is strengthening customer relationship. So selling cross-selling products within existing customer base was, few years back that was a norm. It was okay to go ahead and get in touch with your existing customer, but current indexes do not say that. There is a possibility of hurting customers' expectations if you are actually selling them your own product and connecting with them over and over again. So I believe even these needs to be taken care of, the customer sentiments when that could be one of the driving force, as well as what Paytm is currently provide, as Anish correctly mentioned. Paytm wallets and UPI, these are so easy to use features that providing these things in your wallet, in your industry or in your organization is one of the mandate these days. So these are the important factors that I feel institution must address when they think of expanding. That's from my end.
Thank you very much, Anish and Trupti, for the wonderful insight. I like the some of the example which has been given, wherein banks are also thinking in a more customer centric, and what are the other market forces which are having a lot of impact. So going to the next topic. What is the overall impact on this overall forces in the banking architecture? Because now a lot of things are happening in the banking industry, wherein a lot of focus on the customer centric, a lot of data is more. So definitely current banking architecture which we have, that also needs to get changed to that, to tackle the future of banking. So would you like to throw some light on this particular aspect?
Yeah, let me take a shot at it. So one of my observations is, all these market forces are actually making the banks more agile, right? They want to be very nimble and fast in terms of the services that they deliver to their clients. Traditionally, these banks have been carrying a large legacy core, and they were kind of afraid of touching that, right? But what we are seeing now with with technology at your disposal, banks are now actually revisiting their banking architectures and trying to see how they can have a thinner core and a thicker digital layer around it, right? So one approach is, you take your core and you kind of strangle your core to a bare minimum, and then the blocks like, say, lending or cash management or trade finance, all those are kind of sitting outside, and you pick, or AML or all those, right, compliance, and you pick the best of the breed solutions that can solve those problems. Okay, so that is one approach that I'm definitely seeing. Second is, some of the banks are doing away with their legacy and looking at some strong enterprise grade solutions, right? Temenos, for example, right? So those kind of. But there are also others who are now saying that, hey, I want to really, look at the new age core banking solution. So the cloud native solutions like the 10x, the Mambus, and the Thought Machines of the world. Okay, so those are some of the ways banks are playing with their core. uh, Another approach that I have seen is where, if banks are not able to crack their existing core, right, and it's a huge task to do that, especially some of the leading banks globally, right? What they are doing is they are spawning out another digital bank with a new age architecture, right? For example, DBS came up with digibank when they entered to in order to enter into newer markets, right? So that's another way of solving the problem. You continue with your core, you start another digital architecture, and then maybe you move on to that architecture at a at a later stage. So those are some of the uh, you know ways I have seen people are playing with their core, with the core banking architecture.
Thank you, Anish.
Yeah. I would like to add two more points. One is, the current architecture. If a financial institution is thinking of expanding their architecture according to the driving forces, there are certain challenges that they do face, and that applies across the industry. Most of these banks do face this. One of them being the data. Having a customer base since a longer time, traditional banks would have a lot of redundant data, a lot of data which probably is an orphan. No one would know exactly, where to map these kind of information. So I believe that's one of the core challenges that the organization may face. The second is maintaining the legacy architecture, having those resources. Current most banking institutions, the traditional ones specifically, would may have the legacy systems for which the resources are very difficult to find them. COBOL, .NET, I think those are uh, technologies which were being used in the past. So that is one of the challenges which I see. So coming back to that architecture, if you want to move to the new one, which works with the driving forces in the industry, I believe they need to look into having the integration points where it's more like an API, API based, where it's an internal and external talking within the system could happen. Having that technology which is more like a device and operating system agnostic, working it on the internet, ensuring your customers could log in as well as your employees could log in into that system. So I think these are the parameters that a organization should look into when they are trying to move on with the new architecture.
Thank you, Trupti, for insights. So now as we have discussed, a lot of things with respect to architecture, but definitely to make that architecture happen, we need to do a lot of investments, a lot of IT initiative wherein top C-level executives needs to think, and definitely the most of the part is the technical and the technology investment needs to do from the banking each bank perspective. So what are your thought process on those? Wherein what are the key investments? What are the top IT initiatives or top technology investments bank can do in future way of working?
Yeah, I think coming from an IT services background, I can relate to that very well. Uh, so so I think one of the first elements is, if you look at it, the whole bank from a front to back perspective, right? The experience side of thing is very important, right? And what we need to do, and what banks are doing today, is taking a persona driven approach, right? So your banking customers are also, there is an age persona, there is a location persona, and I'm talking about a global perspective where there's a lot of unbanked population as well as if you look at India also, there is, a wide spread of banking customers, right? So you basically, banks are investing in a persona led approach where they look at the customer journeys of those individuals, and then find out, what are their pain areas and try to solve those. Okay, I'll give you an example. uh, SBI, I was just visiting the branch the other day. I, of course, I use mobile banking a lot, but I, I was visiting the branch, and uh, I had to deposit a check, right? And traditionally, you have this blue slip which you fill, and then you get a stamp, and yeah. What I saw is SBI now has a kiosk where you just put in a check, and the check gets scanned, you confirm the data, and you move on, right? Now, this is something that is primarily targeted for a population that loves to go to the branches and to get their things sorted, right? So that's one. And then you also have SBI Yono, which is a mobile banking app, which is for the millennials and for the Gen X, Gen Ys, right? So banks are focusing a lot on the experience side of things. That's number one, okay, in terms of investment. Number two, I think there is cloud of everything. Okay, a few years back, people were wary of cloud. Okay, there's security issue, and I don't know if where my data will reside and all. I think now, the technology has advanced and people have confidence. Many of these banks are now moving into the cloud environment where either it's on the infrastructure side to reduce cost, or it is about building modern digital native apps, right? So I think cloud adoption is another big area of investment. The third, I would say, is kind of linked to the experience thing also, is data, right? As Trupti pointed out, I think data is a very key ingredient for the banking world. And it comes from two perspectives. One is how can I use data to cross sell, upsell, improve my market reach, all of that, right? So for revenue growth. Second is how can I do risk containment, right? So how can I have the network visualization, ensure that I have a clear view of where my institutional clients are and who's related to them, and are there any risk that I need to be aware of. So data is another key area of investment. Many banks are now investing around building that golden source of truth, building that data lineage, and then generating insights out of that, right? I think another important point is relating to the earlier question about how banks are now, expanding their ecosystem, right? Is the whole microservices driven architecture, where they are not, one is they are decoupling their own mesh architecture, and second is they are now opening up APIs that can be consumed by other external ecosystems so that they have a play in the market. Okay, so integration and API, right? And the last, I would say, from a cost standpoint, is also the automation element, right? So how you can do quick fixes through elements like technologies like RPA, but also looking at a long-term picture and looking at how you can entirely transform the business process, bringing in the right digital tenets, and also bringing in an element of AI ML to kind of automate the process to the extent possible. So those are some of the tech initiatives that I'm seeing largely for many of our clients. And this is not just one sector of banks. It's like global banks, the GSIBs, as well as the regional banks. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much, Anish, for giving some wonderful insights on this investment, which are the key in today's world. Because lot of banking, definitely they have to see what are the return on investment, and definitely all these initiatives are definitely a key success factor for any of the bank. So,
Yeah.
so going forward, normally this is what we discussed so far. We discussed one architecture piece. We discussed what are the IT, IT investment piece. Now we can go to the next topic, wherein we can think, okay, how because the culture is very important aspects of any of the banking industry or any of the organization which are working on it. So how we can avoid the overall agile culture gap during the agile transformation.
Yeah, I would like to take that question, Anu. So when agile transformation happens, then there could be deviation, as there are people from different teams. We all come from different backgrounds, and it's all about people. Ultimately, it's about people we work with. And what happens that if we are coming from different backgrounds, different work experiences, there tend to be gaps in the workflows, in efficiencies, and in the overall goal that we are trying to achieve. And that's what we call culture gaps. So I'd like to throw light on few of the culture gaps that we face while we are doing agile transformation, and how to avoid those gaps. Now, the very first gap is the trust gap. So it's very self-explanatory. Trust gap can happen between stakeholders and product owners. It can happen between teams and the product owner. It could happen between client and the company. Why trust gap happens? Trust gap happens because maybe the team is not demoing their product on time. Maybe they are not meeting the deadlines while they are what they have committed to. Maybe they don't understand the language of the product owner or the client. So that's why trust gap tends to creep in, and that can affect the team in a major way, because ultimately confidence of the client is lost in the product. And it's very important that we are frequently demoing our work to the end user to ensure that this trust gap is bridged. So that's about trust gap. Now, second gap that can happen is language gap. It's again a very common example, and you most of you must have seen it in your projects. Let's say there are two parties in the project. This project, there's this person A, this person B. person A has been in the industry for a long time. He has been in the system for a very, very long time. He's well versed with the lexicon, the jargon of the project, while person B could be just a fresher who's coming up to speed. And he may not know the jargons or the words used in project. What happens then in such a case, language gap can happen because person A will have more grasp on the ideas. He would be able to communicate his ideas very quickly, but person B might not understand what person A is saying. And that's why language gap could happen. Why language gap happens? It happens because uh, of lack of awareness. And that's why it's important. That's where talent and training comes into picture. So we have to ensure that we are constantly training our people so that language gap can be abridged. Third gap that can happen in the system is rules gap. So rules gap is again a common gap in countries, in different countries, in different companies, in different governments. There are different rules that are put into place. Even in a company, in different departments, different rules are put into place. Now, if people of a company or a department are unaware of the rules of department B, then rules gap can come into picture. That also happens due to lack of awareness. And fourth gap, which is the most severe gap out of all of these, is risk gap. Why risk gap happens? Because of all these three gaps that I just spoke about, trust gap, rule gap, and language gap. They can magnify and disrupt your entire product development process. They can derail your timelines. You won't be able to meet your project objectives. So because of all this, a product or a project is at risk of meeting the timelines. That's the ultimate gap, and that's called risk gap. Now, question is how to abridge these gaps. So the best way to deal with these gaps is collaboration is the key. That's the pivotal point. And why is that? That is the case because if we are constantly communicating with our product owners, if we are constantly communicating with our clients, getting the feedback on time, we have this opportunity to improve ourselves. And by getting the constant feedback, we can reduce these gaps. Another way is to constantly demonstrate our product at a constant cadence of 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Again, say seek the feedback. Third is stakeholder has a vision, the customer has a vision. So that vision should be percolated in every layer. Every developer should understand the vision of the end client. And once they understand the vision, everybody will speak the same language, everybody will understand. And that way we can reduce these gaps. So these are the ways of reducing the gaps. So over to you, Amok.
Thank you very much. I have also seen some of the scenarios wherein the language gap I have seen, wherein people were facing a lot of issues with respect to the one person is speaking with a more having the more domain experience knowledge or speaking in some language which another person coming from different domain, was facing a lot of challenge. I have also seen those gaps. Thank you very much for those insights, Shruti. So now overall we can see, overall lot of ways your banking team are thinking, digital is a very key space. I think Anish also spoke on a starting discussion digital. He has used the term called physical to digital. So I think digital is going to play a key role along with the quality assurance. Normally we can see the lot of organization, lot of banking or lot of the customer wherein projects got failed because lack of not quality assurance is in place. So what is the overall role of a digital quality assurance in the rapidly evolving overall this banking industry?
Yeah. So digital quality is kind of married to Agile, and digital quality assurance strategy has to be in place whenever we are talking of Agile transformation. The reason is that digital quality brings in speed, continuous learning, and quality to the product. And as we know that this app ecosystem is evolving. In fact, this term super app was an idea coined in 2010 by Blueberry co-founder. He said that super apps is a concept where all the players will come into picture in one app. A person would be able to do anything with excellent experience, and that's where banking industry is heading to. They all are trying to make super apps so that they can provide end user with one app with which he or she can do any activity that he or she does in his entire day. And when we are building apps, obviously mobile testing strategy cannot be ignored at. So some of the key elements when we are devising a testing strategy or digital quality assurance strategy is first to think about security testing. Second is multi-tenant testing. So what do you mean by multi-tenant testing? It's capturing different aspects in your test strategy, like how many times app upgrades happen, or it's about thinking how many times app crashes. So all of these factors we can't ignore, because mobile apps are becoming so pivotal. They are ingrained in our lives. So if you are using Ola or Uber, it is very important that payment integration is seamless. A customer gets impatient if he is not seeing that his money is getting transferred or no. So that's why all these factors we have to think of while we are devising our strategy, especially app crashes. Does your mobile app crashes when you're using it? Then you have to think about it. Secondly, does your mobile app works on different browsers, different operating systems, different tablets, different devices like tablets, iPads? If not, then you have to think about it. You even have to think about smallest aspect, that when a person is using his finger while swiping left or swiping right, then how his finger movements are seamless and swift or no, and is mobile app giving a good experience or no? So these are small things we have to think of while devising our strategy. And one very important aspect is cross-browser testing. Your app should be able to work very swiftly, whether you're using Safari, Edge, Chrome, Firefox, whatnot. And we do have tools like Browser Stack that lets you test your app across different applications, or even Mabel. Then performance testing. How well can your mobile app scale under pressure? So it could be, we could use tools like Mabel for performance testing. We could use tools like Chaos Monkey to create chaos in the system and see if application break or no. So ultimate aim is to do so much testing on the system that it breaks, and identify that breaking point and fix it in advance. Then we have artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence gives you capabilities. So we use a tool called Mabel in our company, where we could predict the defects much ahead in time. We have self-healing systems. So if UI is changing, your tool won't break the test, won't fail the test, and won't give you false positive. We have capabilities where system will heal itself and heal the test and make it pass, because UI has changed. And one very important and the last aspect I want to throw light on is the security testing. How data is transferred today. It's all based on how much confident a customer is on your app, whether your data is encrypted or secure or no. So that's why I will throw light on mainly on the security testing aspect that we have to ingrain in our digital quality assurance testing. So few of the aspects that we have to think of while testing security is application validation flow. It is recommended that proper server-side input validation must be used for filtering out hazardous characters from the user input. Always server-side validation is very important. Then another thing is we have to make use of parameters and prepared statements, stored procedure to ensure that input is processed as a text. Another aspect we have to think of is data security. We have to ensure that we are not storing any sensitive customer related data that could, and in fact they should be encrypted, and we have to ensure that we are using proper key management systems. Today tools like AWS, Microsoft Azure are coming up with their own AWS KMS or SSE S3 SSE client management system for key management systems. So we have to explore that, and we should encrypt it end to end. If there are any, and you must have seen it while you're using any app, if there are any auto completes in the form that lets you select your username. If you have previously used it, sometime autocomplete comes up that lets you populate your username and passwords. So we have to be very careful while making an app that autocomplete form should be disabled. We should disable caching on the important forms on our banking app, because all of this contain very sensitive data. How are we authorizing our user? MFA comes into picture. Now, right now, only username and password is not something we can rely on, especially where money is involved, where banks are involved. We have to make use of double tier or 3-tier factor authentication, MFA. That's why you receive your OTP on your mobile phone, that just to ensure that you are the right user. How we are using page redirecting mechanisms, API credentials, retrieval and storage. Sensitive data should be encrypted at all times. That's the key. That's the foundation, including whether your data is in transit, it's transferring, or whether you're storing it. And do not, in the application, we should never ever accept non-HTTPS connections. That's also a very basic thing. Then there are things like we have to disable older version of SSL, TSL, enable strong ciphers and things like that. How we are uploading the file validation. So all these are the key areas in digital quality assurance that we should think of while we are building our quality assurance strategy. Over to you, Mo.
Thank you very much, Shruti. Yes, security testing, all the performance testing, all the aspects which are covered are really a key vital role. Definitely, multi-factor authentication normally is also one of the key, success criteria, because otherwise, a lot of things the security breach can happen. Definitely. So now as we are summarizing the overall the key aspects. So what are the key trends, which you can think where the future
Hmm.
banking industry is going to evolve? So would you like to throw some light on this particular aspect?
Uh, yeah, Anish, I don't.
Yeah, sure. So Amok, the way I see it, banking is no longer going to be about enabling financial transactions alone, right? It is going to be about enabling life events. Okay, and that is the future. We are already seeing it with examples of like Paytm. You can book your movie ticket, you can book your flight ticket, train ticket, pay your bills, everything, right? All the banks are heading in the same direction. Okay, how the user interface, the channels will change. Okay, but what is going to happen is the bank will enable your life event, and the financial element of that will be something that is automatically happening in the background, right? So you pick something and the money gets paid out in the background, right? You are already seeing examples of that in Amazon shopping and so on, right? uh, DBS is one of my favorite banks. Their tagline is "Live more, bank less," and I think that kind of summarizes how the future of banking will be.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. To add to what Anish said, yeah, I agree with him. Banks are moving in new directions. Few of the key trends that I think are going to change banking industry. One being big data. Now, big data has a lot of potential, and I'll give you one simple example. Let's say you're working in Singapore and you recently moved to Japan. Now, gone are the days. In earlier days, for every banking transaction, a person had to go to a bank physically, talk to the teller, and teller would tally his information, open the bank account. But those days are long gone. Now, whenever a person moves from Singapore to Japan, consumers are expecting that in a day's time, I should be able to get a credit card, so I can, go on with my life swiftly. And that's where big data comes into picture. So, what this big data is about? It's about four V's: value, velocity of the data, that is huge volume of data. Volume of the velocity is the speed at which data is coming. In fact, one of the banks, Western Union, said that they are getting data at the rate of 25 transactions per second, and even more than that. So you can think that the amount of data that is getting generated. So it's about velocity of the data, volume of the data. We know that a lot of structured and unstructured data via emails, via video calls, via their websites are getting captured. So all of this gets captured in the data lake. So that's where volume comes into picture, veracity of the data, and variety of the data. Variety, why? Because it could be in the form of video, it could be in the form of text, it could be in the form of voice. So all this data is getting captured, and then this data is getting used by the banks to derive insights with the help of predictive analytics model. Then we are also using this data to feed in our data lakes, and that's where Hadoop and Apache Spark come into picture. These are high performing engines, parallel engines that process your data, and then it gives to bank in a way that bank can use it. Now, where are the what are the applications of this data that we are getting? So first application is bank is using this data to find out how in fraud and cyber security and criminal investigation, for example, they will use this data to see if transactions that are happening are fraudulent or they are genuine transactions. Another area that is upcoming is IoT, Internet of Things. Again, Internet of Things is connected devices are there, and the data transfer over the network. That's also bank is using a lot and coming up with a concept called Bank of Things. Now, I'll give you one very interesting example how bank is using IoT. So IoT is all about devices. As you know that with recent years, there has been an explosion in the devices that everybody is using. So there is this device called Interact IoT, and that's a shock wearable device. That means if you give it to the customer and customer will wear it, and if he is overspending from his limit, per day limit, then he receives a shock on his wrist. And if he still ignores it and keeps on spending, and then he'll again receive a shock, and that's like a reminder that you have to stop now spending. This is your limits. That's where IoT comes into pictures, reminding people, sending alerts to them that how we can ensure that you are within your limit. Another area is chatbot. There are very famous chatbots like Erica from Bank of America, because people are using Google, Alexa, Siri. So these chatbots, they give an opportunity to the customer to talk with the customer and resolve their query then and there. That avoids interaction with the actual bank customer. Then there is concept of smart branches coming up. So there is a smart branch concept as per which there would be no people at all, no employees at all in the bank. When a person goes, it is fully technology enabled bank, and all the transactions would be driven by voice assistant, kind of a chatbot kind of a thing. So those concepts are coming up. And lastly, I think of is these biometrics. So as I said, authentication, authorizations are very important area. And that's where AI, ML, natural language processing, deep learning, supervised and supervised learning models are playing a very pivotal role. So one of the cases I'll tell you is Caixa Bank of Spain, that claims to be the first bank that has a facial recognition system as the authorization mechanism, where a person can show the face, authenticate himself, and then withdraw money. And another is Liord's Bank. Liord's bank has voice recognition system. Again, there are pros and cons. Voice recognition system has a con that somebody can chip in and use a recorded voice and can do the transaction. But obviously, things are evolving. And very last and very upcoming trend in banking industry is green bank. Why green bank? Today also, a UN summit on climate change kick-started in Glasgow. So there has been a very increased interest from all over the world on energy efficient banks. And that's where concept of green bank comes into picture. In America, a lot of green banks have started cropping up right after 2018. The term was coined in 2009, but from 2018 to today, a lot of green banks are coming. So what's green bank? They are on a mission that they will only finance and invest in the businesses for cleaner energy, businesses which are supporting cleaner energy. So they want to reduce carbon dioxide emission, want to reduce pollutants. So that's what the aim of the green bank is. And there are green banks in the world, like some of which I can think of at the top of my head are Michigan Saves, New York Green Bank, Nevada Green Bank. So there are a lot of around 18 to 19 green banks and more coming up. And we are not far from the day that in India also green banks will come up and will only support cleaner energy transition. Even if we look at the crypto world, so there is one XRP ledger. That USP of the XRP ledger is that we are the cryptocurrency, because even cryptocurrency transactions generate energy. Bitcoin mining generate a lot of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So XRP says we are the cryptocurrencies which uses least amount of energy. We don't emit any carbon dioxide. We emit least amount of energy in gallons into the world. So I would definitely recommend all of you to go at XRP ledger site and see very nicely they have given the distinction that how much money, if you are using paper currency, how much energy you are emitting in the environment, or if you are using Bitcoin, how much energy you're emitting for every transaction. So I think world has become very conscious about environment friendly agenda. So that's from my side.
Thank you very much, Shruti,
Mm.
for such a wonderful insights. Actual fact of the matter is I was never aware about bank is doing so much investment in IoTs and
Yeah.
getting shockers. So it was really shock to me also, frankly speaking. Okay, so I think we do not have any questions here, but I have another question on top of which is coming in my mind. Okay, so normally we can see a lot of because we still have some 7-8 minutes. So I think we do not have any questions from the audience. So I think I'll do another questions. Okay, so what are the key pitfalls which we can think to avoid agile transformations, and what are the lessons learned what during any agile transformation?
Um, I think coming from a business standpoint, right? I think one of the pitfalls is poor involvement of business in the agile way of working, right? At times, we have seen some clients who claim that they want to go agile, but then they still work with a waterfall mindset, right? And then the business users are not accustomed to the agile ways of working, and then it leads to chaos. So what we have done for some of our clients is we bring in agile coaches who not just train the team, the development team, but also coach the business users on what it takes to work in an agile setup. I think ING, there is a very good story if you Google on ING how they did an complete agile way of working, and how they set up a very product centric model. And I think that is the future of in terms of how projects are going to be run, where you have a full stack team that works and delivers a product. Okay, and I think that is so to summarize, the pitfall is make sure the business users are educated so as to avoid that pitfall, right? So that's one point I would like to make.
Thank you. Thank you, Anish, for answering.
Yeah, I would
Okay, so
like
I
to
think
add
video.
here.
Yeah, yeah, Shruti, please.
So I think, yeah, some of the pitfalls are we need sponsorship from top-down leadership. If top-down leadership is not endorsing, then obviously there won't be any transformation that would be happening in reality. It will only be on papers. Another thing is that decision making in traditional bureaucratic banking system is very slow. That means if for any decision that has to be taken, a lot of meetings happen, then a lot of in-person meetings happen, a lot of presentation happen, and they have good reasons for that because of strong regulatory compliances. But yeah, they have to understand that in agile way of working, decision making is moved to the lower level of the team. It is the agile team which is a very high performing team, and they kind of are responsible for making design decisions to deliver the product, and that's where innovation can sustain. That way new product development can sustain ideas, the new coming up of new ideas can be sustained. So decision making could be one of the pitfall if it's not very fast enough. And lastly, IT is still viewed as siloed because banking's industry's major focus is money. So when money is the focus, they will be more concentrated on the customer facing units like mortgages or high net worth client or retail banking. But somewhere IT might take a backseat for them because if IT is viewed as a silo, then they won't think of it. But they have to think differently. It's customer now whom we have to focus, and customer can succeed only if IT and different departments come together and are working as a single united team. So these are a few of the pitfalls.
Thank you very much, Shruti, to adding further points on my questions. I think we do have three questions now, and we do have 3 minutes. So I think we'll go first in, first out. We'll take first question, which came from uh, Priyank. Okay, so what is your view about nano banking, and is that a real innovation?
Let me take that. I think by nano banking, you're referring to banking transactions that are very minuscule, without any assets in the background. So I think we are engaged with a lot of banks in India and in regions like Africa, okay, where there is a huge unbanked population, and people are actually looking for support for even their mobile talk time, right? So we have in fact collaborated with some of our banking clients, and partnered with some fintechs and telecom companies to enable such solutions, right? So these people are just looking for like a 25 rupee a loan so that they can add some talk time to their mobile, and then they repay back after a certain time. What the banks are, and this is something that our client has shared, is banks, when you combine these smaller loans, in total, you end up with a good portfolio where your return is fairly good. So one is from a from helping the environment, economic situation standpoint, it's a great initiative, but also it's not a loss-making initiative, right? So a lot of these unsecured small nano transactions are definitely helping the community and building a brand for the banks.
Thank you very much, Anish. Okay, so second question also again from Priyank. Okay, we are talking about generation that banking is a complex domain. What are your tips for making that simple?
Yeah, I would like to take that. So a very good question by Priyank. Yeah, banking is complex. That's right. So the thing is, if you're starting the agile transformation in the bank, the key is to start simple. And how to start simple? We don't have to. There are two ways to do agile transformation. So many companies take that. First is either to go for full-fledged agile transformation, where you're rolling out a big plan to transform once and for all the teams and all the customer-facing domains as well. And the other is to start only with one team and do a spot initiative. Start simple with one team and start your transformation, implement, plan it, implement it, measure your transformation, measure the metrics, how much business value are you delivering before and after the transformation, how much money you have saved before and after the transformation, have you increased the speed of delivery before and after, and try and do the experiment in a small group. Once that transformation is successful in the small group, then you expand the bright spots. So this is a bright example where transformation is successful. Then you go on and expand it to other parts of the team. So take it in chunks. Maybe you transform one waterfall team of 20 people into two scrum teams or three scrum teams. Do some measurement, show it to higher management that how it is proving beneficial to the organization, and then take it step by step to other teams. I think that's how most of the banks transform. That's how we transformed at ABN AMRO. And post that, if it's successful in IT domain, then we take it to other domains like marketing, HR, finance, and so on and so forth. Because agile could be used is not only for IT and development, software development. It could be the power of agile can be harnessed in other departments also.
I think Priyank is saying his question is more from a domain standpoint. Um,
Mhm.
I think fundamentally the domain has not changed and will not change, right? Uh, so, so if you understand the domain, it is simple. If not, it is complex. You know, but I think how you enable that domain is what is changing, right? So I think that's a short answer to a very heavy question.
And another thing, I would say, Priyank, that if there is any initiative that you're kickstarting in your organization, the best way and something worked for us in the past is hackathon. So we, it could be like your problem statement is how to simplify a domain. We had a different problem statement, but problem statements can be different, but ideas can come from anywhere. And that's where we invited ideas from 150 odd people. If we filtered the idea with the SMEs, we had our own team, so filtered the ideas and then executed them in one hackathon sprint that we conducted for 2 weeks. So similarly, this is one of the problem statement for which we can conduct hackathon, invite ideas from different people, and conduct a sprint and let them demo at the end of it and take it forward if something works. So that
Makes
also
sense.
could
Makes
yeah.
Makes sense. I think we do a last question from Mr. Raghupati K. So there is a what are the changes which are happening? So actually, when the changes are happening at such a high pace, but regulatory changes takes its own time. How Agile Wow takes care of it? Tripti, would you like to take this question?
Yeah, sure. So, from what I understand from the question is Raghupati trying to ask about how the regulatory things can be managed through the agile is what I understand. I hope I'm correct in understanding that, and I'll move ahead with that assumption that it is a correct one. Um, you have to customize your agile a bit uh, as per your requirement. So if you try and follow the exact agile the way it is, it probably may not match with your regulatory changes, or it may not even um, match with the culture that the organization may have. So I'll tell you a simple example what we did, what I understand from this question, the regulatory changes. If there is a change coming in uh, from the regulators, and we have already deployed that code, that things have already passed it on, we'll have to hold on to your sprint, take a break, make changes as per the regulation, because that's something which is on priority. So that's a customization. That's I'm taking a sprint break during things going on. However, that has to be a logical conclusion, or there has to be a logical break, not like break as such, completely breaking everything. But that's how we take it up. So we actually take a logical break from whatever sprints that we are running, ensure that regulatory changes are correctly deployed into the production, and then move on with our feature. From the other perspective, I understand from the audit perspective, if you think the RBI needs a couple of evidences in order to ensure, we are compliant. I ensure that during our agile meetings, so we have sprint planning, retro, scrum calls, and other agile meetings that we have, we ensure that the way the format is, it whatever the regulatory regulations need it, I ensure that those evidences are captured, so that I don't really put special efforts uh, to capture those evidences. Um, so that's all from my end. Like, just customize your agile log, and that will help.
Thank you very much,
I
Trupti.
hope
So I
I've
think we
answered.
have covered most of the questions,
Yeah.
and thank you very much, Shruti, Trupti, and Anish for the wonderful insight for this Agile Wow.